You're listening to Let's Talk Sports podcast with me, Lucia. NFL, NBA news, and more coming to you right now. Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of Let's Talk Sports podcast with me, Lucia. Now, the rundown this week. We're going to talk last week's storylines, this week in sports history, news, and then the NBA playoffs. It's here, and it's happening. It's actually right in the first games of the first round. Sorry I couldn't get to this up earlier. I was away for the Easter break. And happy Easter to all of you guys. So last week's main storylines. Kyler Murray, still at odds with the Cardinals, has said that he will not play unless he's got an extended contract. So that's going to be an interesting thing going forward with the Cardinals, seeing how they deal with it, seeing how they deal with Kyler and his representation and all that sort of stuff. It's going to be interesting to see. The Packers have signed wide receiver Sammy Watkins. So this is going to be the first of many wide receivers that are necessary for the NFL and in the NFL draft for the Packers, as they have got literally zero weapons. So, actually, it would be interesting to see how Aaron Rodgers goes with actually zero weapons. Because he's had the top number one receiver in Davante Adams for so long. And all the talk is that he's never had anything to work with. Well, you're going to see him work with absolutely nothing, which is going to be interesting to see how good he actually really is. Colts sign cornerback Stephon Gilmore. That's a great signing for them. That's building up their secondary that was already a monster this year, this past season. That's such a good defense. And now adding Stephon Gilmore is an incredible signing and an incredible just putting pieces together for the Colts. They're going to be better than next year because they've upgraded a quarterback, which isn't saying much. Baker Mayfield is upset with how he was treated by the Browns. And honestly, I think that they did him dirty. They truly did. He was a couple of plays away from being their franchise quarterback for the rest of their career, for the rest of their life, for the rest of his career. Yeah, there's something up with Baker. I would like a 30 for 30 on that entire process. In some NBA storylines, the Clippers get clipped, which makes me happy as a Lakers fan. The Cavs don't make it into playoffs, but my prediction was true. They did have a better record than the Lakers. That was true. And was that Greg Popovich's last season with the Spurs? The rumor mill is already circling over him going to the Lakers. And look, as much as I'd love Popovich, I would prefer to have a new coach in there. My actual preference for coach is an assistant that has worked with the team for years. I would like someone like, I don't know, if Becky Hammond wasn't with the WNBA, I would want Becky Hammond. That is who I would want as my coach, but can't have her at the moment. Clayton Kershaw's no-hitter was interrupted by manager Dave Roberts in the 7th. That caused a lot of uproar, and it just is an encapsulation of what is actually wrong with the game of baseball. All this analytics, and you don't let somebody have their moment. The Yankees are struggling. And look, they struggled early last season. And with the Mets off to a flying start, it sort of it switches New York a little bit for a little while. But hey, the Yankees have struggled before and they've won World Series. The Mets have gone off to a flying start and then crash and burned, which is what happens with the Mets. So this week in sports history, in talking about baseball, in 1947, Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier in the Major League Baseball, becoming the first black player in MLB history. That is incredible. It was 75 years ago that happened. If you think about it, that's only one people ago. If we all live to 100, that's only one people ago. It's incredible. It's incredible, and it's an incredible story for the ever-evolving baseball. So news. Draft is only 2 weeks away. My mock draft I will be speaking about next week. I've been studying it, been doing all of my little calculations on who I think is going where, and you should be looking forward to hearing from me about that next week. Tua is looking forward to playing for head coach Mike McDaniel, and honestly, I would be too. He's like this little pocket rocket. He looks tiny, but yet he looks like a pocket rocket, and he looks like he's going to be an incredible coach for the Dolphins. Even though that whole Brady, Sean Payton thing, I would have loved to see that go down, because that would have been some Game of Thrones type of stuff. But I would have I love that hire from Miami. AJ Green is returning to the Cardinals for 1 year. So with AJ Green returning, what does that mean for Kyler? Geno Smith re-signs with the Seahawks on a 1 year, $7 million deal. So he will be fighting for the starting job with Drew Lock or even Baker Mayfield when they eventually make the trade. Derek Carr gets extended after handing them Devontae Adams, which I'm happy for Derek Carr. If I was to have any other quarterback except my own, I would be Derek Carr. I love Derek Carr. Clint Capella's knee is to be reevaluated during the week. He was injured in the play-in tournament game against the Cavs, which the Hawks won. Doncic misses game 1, and the Dallas Mavericks fall behind in that series because of it. Jokic is going to be the MVP, in my estimation, and Steph Curry is optimistic about playing in the first round of the playoffs. He said that on the podcast with Draymond Green, which was an excellent listen to. Okay, it's time. The NBA playoffs. So here are my predictions, and here is how I feel like the first round is going to go. Suns versus the New Orleans Pelicans. I am going with Suns in 5. Dallas versus Utah. I am going with Dallas in 6. GWS versus Denver. I am going with Golden State Warriors versus Denver. I am going with Golden State in 5. Memphis versus Minnesota. I am going with Memphis in 6. In the East, we've got MIA versus Atlanta. I am going with Miami in 6. Philly versus Toronto. I am going with Philly in 6. Milwaukee versus Chicago. I am going with Milwaukee in 5. And Boston Celtics versus the Nets. I am going with Nets in 7. And the Boston Celtics versus the Nets is going to be the round of the first round. So that is all for this week's episode of Let's Talk Sports Podcast. So I'll catch you all next week. Bye.